So today I'm going to be talking to everyone about Yule. I think Yule is probably one of our best known holidays. A large part of that is because of the fact that the term Yule or Yuletide is still broadly used when describing the Christmas season. Also, the fact that so many of our pre Christian traditions have been sort of adapted into Christian traditions makes it a very recognizable holiday for most people. Um, so I know a lot of people tend to focus on the negative aspect of the Christians came in and stole all of our stuff, but instead of thinking of it that way, I really believe that we should instead think of it in terms of, well, I'm glad that they stole our stuff because now we can take it back. Because focusing on the negative aspect of it kind of takes away from the fact that Yule is supposed to be a very joyful time of year. So Yuletide is the 12 days of Yule. It usually starts on or right before the winter solstice. I have to get my calendar. Sorry, because I don't remember days. So we usually have the first night of Yule is on the 20th, or Mother's Night. And the solstice is usually on the 21st or the 22nd. It just, it depends. But in order to have 12 days of Yule, you can't have the first night of Yule start on the solstice every single time, or you don't have enough days. You know what I mean? But it usually starts on the 20th, or it does start on the 20th with Mother's Night, or Frigga's Night, depending. It's kind of both. Frigga being the All Mother, she is one of the Dseer after a fashion, and we celebrate our Dseer on Mother's Night. Our Dseer are the ones who are holding the hearth fires steady and ready to keep us all warm and well fed throughout the season. Yule was, for our ancestors, sort of a mild sigh of relief. We're not quite getting ready to be out of the harshest part of the year, but Yule marks the beginning of the decline of winter. The days start to grow a little bit longer, and as they start to grow longer, they grow warmer, and thus it avalanches forward into spring and summer and the growing in easy times. And I say easy only because, if you were in Iceland 1,000 years ago, you were probably homebound and getting hungry for something other than the supplies you were able to have last up until this point. But it was the harshest time of the year. Obviously, we don't live 1,000 years ago and we have access to easy growing things with the grocery stores and stuff, but we still recognize, well, I guess Yuletide too. Our seasons are a little more mild than they were for our ancestors in Iceland too, but it was considered the harshest time of the year. It's also, all of us can recognize, even by the end of December, how grateful we are to know that the days are going to start getting longer again. Me personally, I am a school bus driver, and it's really hard being in the bus in the afternoon, driving the kids home from school at 3:30 and 4, and having the sun already starting to go down. It's depressing, and I can't see very well with the sun shining in my eyes. I miss the longer days. I miss the warmth. I miss playing outside. And I know my kids do too, even though they'll complain every time I tell them it's time to go play outside. But yeah, the 12 days of Yule are a time of celebration for our folk. Because it is, like I said before, it is the recognition of the beginning of the end of winter. And if the winter is coming to an end, it means that spring and summer are coming. During Yule, we celebrate the gods. We celebrate the wild hunt. It's also a really good time to celebrate the Landvættir, our ancestors, and our family and our friends, because it's a time traditionally where we spend a lot of time closed inside with our families. Sometimes it can be hard spending that much time inside all the time with our families, but we should take the time to celebrate how lucky we are that we have our spouses or our roommates or our children or even just our puppies. Um, Sorry about that.
Thanks, Navi.
Yeah. For some reason, the absolute worst part of that game, and if I turn that off as my message, I don't hear my phone. It has to be Navi, or I'm conditioned, you know. Um, so as I mentioned before, a lot of our traditions are pre-Christian and have been adapted. Mistletoe was usually hung to ward off evil spirits. The Yule log was used to prevent evil or to encourage the sun to come faster. I read somewhere once that it was considered a worthy offering to Thor. I don't know how accurate that is, though. I think that's probably more of a modern interpretation than a historical one. Wassailing, I don't know if that's pre-Christian exactly, but it's often associated with Yule time. Wassailing being, caroling, basically. Um, I know that we have Krampus and Krampusnacht. I do not celebrate Krampusnacht, which would be on December 5th for anybody who does celebrate Krampusnacht. But the idea is that Krampus is like this angry old goat man thing who would travel around on December 5th. And if you left your shoes outside for him, he would, or I think maybe it was Saint Nick would leave you a present if you were good, and Krampus would catch you and switch you with a birch rod if you were bad. According to a slightly more modern take. Like I said, I don't really celebrate it, but I know that it's a big deal for a lot of people. So, and I know people who would say Krampusnacht. They put their shoes outside, and if they're good, they wake up with a toy in their shoes, and if they're bad, they might have coal or something in there. But since we all know our parents are the ones who are doing that, probably you don't ever find coal. Although I think it would be funny one day. Um, we have the Yule Bach is another tradition that a lot of people use. It's the goat made out of straw wrapped with the red ribbon. It's beautiful and also burns really well, which is what most people use it for. Um, to represent a goat that you burn. Sorry. And then the Yule log is a tradition that we still use very heavily in the AFA. In fact, some people you make the Yule log with a piece of the Yule tree from the year before. Um, Obviously, that only works if you purchase a living tree every year, like we do. But you can get creative with it if you need to. But we cut off the trunk, a piece of the trunk, and we store it for the next year, and we put it in the middle of this candle holder thing. I have pictures that I'll be showing you guys later, and you'll see. Some people literally carve holes into them and put their candles directly into the Yule log, and it becomes um, the holder for the candles over the course of the 12 nights. And then on the last night of Yule, you burn your Yule log from the year before. And a lot of people like to save the ashes because you're continuing the cycle of the year before, and the ashes can then be used to bless things and to purify things later on down the road. Um, I feel like I had something else to say about Yule, and I'm drawing a blank. So does anybody have any questions as of right now about what Yule is um, for our folk? I mean, for the Asatru folk assembly.
I've also known people to whatchamacallit. Oh, known them to use, instead of using the part of the Yule tree from the previous year, using part of the maypole or maybe part of the pole that I don't even know what the name of it is, but the pole with the bars and the circles that we use for, or that's used traditionally for midsummer as well. Part of one of
Midsummer stang.
those poles, the midsummer pole. I mean, I guess that makes sense. Part of those as the Yule log. That's just a thought.
Yeah, I've never heard of that, but it's an interesting idea. I'd like to hear from them why they do that, just for curiosity, like what is their reason behind that? Not that it's bad or wrong or anything like that. I'm just, like I said, just curious. Ron, I saw you had your hand up first, so I'm going to call on you first.
Yeah, we've done what Nick said too before, where we've used the midsummer stang as the Yule log, and we didn't pull anything historical out of that, but it just seemed to make sense. It seemed to make sense that it was a time of year we did that. But I originally put my hand up for caroling. There's a fair amount of carols out there that you can use that everybody knows. They might not know all the words, but that don't even mention Christmas. You know, deck the halls with boughs of holly, for 'tis the season to be jolly. You know, don we now a big gay apparel. Um, Dang it, how'd that last verse leave me? But see the blazing Yule before us. It's all Yule associated terms. You got to go back to the older carols though, but there are plenty of carols out there that don't even mention um, Christ or Christmas that everybody knows. That gives us an element of continuance in a lot of people's minds, but also tradition um, for the Yule.
Absolutely, and it's funny because Deck the Halls was the very first one I thought of, because I've been around long enough now that people have done like repeated studies on which songs can we carol to, which songs can we just change a word here or there for to carol without it being too Christian, blah 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 blah. And like I said before, I'd much rather focus on leaving the bad Christians out of it and more on the positive us stuff. And so having a list of songs that exist already, I would really, really like to see our folk start utilizing song more often, even if it's just like, hey, let's all sit around a fire and sing folk songs to each other and wassailing and caroling and all that. I think they're important traditions that have existed for a long time, and it's kind of sad to see them starting to kind of go away. The other part of the presentation I was going to give this evening was about specifically my family's traditions, because they tie into Yuletide, and one of the things that was very important to me and to Whit and Erickson when we had kids was trying to figure out how to do Yule in a way that allowed them to still participate in some of the more culturally normal aspects of the Yuletide season. So I acknowledge 100%. My kids are homeschooled. We're Asatru. We're already going to be so far outside the norm of just outside of the norm when it comes to um, how they fit into society. But culturally, there's just some things you can't get away from. Like, you can't really escape from Christmas. For one, I still say Christmas all the time by accident because I'm almost 40 years old. It's really hard to stop using a word that I've used for like most of my lifetime. Um, and they're gonna have friends outside of our household who open presents on Christmas Day. Even Asatru children whose parents celebrate the main gift giving portion of Yule on Christmas because that's just what they're comfortable with. For me, I really wanted to make sure that my children had, sorry, I have squirrel brain. My phone went off, and so I had to. Um, I really wanted to make sure my kids are firmly rooted in Asatru. That Asatru is the only thing they ever want to be, and I want to do that in a positive way. But I also want to make sure, and this is going to kind of sound silly, but when you're a new mom, you overthink things. And I was a new mom, and it seems a little silly to me now, but I wanted to make sure that the draw of outside holidays wasn't one of the things that gave my kid a reason to want to not be Asatru. So Christmas is a big one, right? Everybody gets presents from Santa, they get all kinds of stuff, blah, 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 blah. I didn't want my kids to look at that and be like, I wish we did that. But I also really wanted to create a tradition that was accessible to everyone who had little kids. In the ideal world, all of the children in the AFA would celebrate Yule exactly the same way. That way, every time our children from the AFA were together at a national event or wherever they might get together, they would all be able to talk about having similar traditions or experiences around holidays. I'm not going to say I don't begin to think that the traditions my husband and I came up with are going to be the traditions that everybody else uses. Oh, that's my timer. Sorry, I'm baking some pies, so I'm going to talk on my way down the stairs. So I can take it out of the oven. I'm going to reset. So when my son was 1, we didn't really celebrate Yule. I had no idea what to do for Yule. I was thinking too hard about it, and I didn't want it to just be a normal, I didn't want it to be Christmas repackaged. And then at Winter Nights one year, I was sitting and I was talking to Catherine, Svan's wife. And she was explaining to me how you guys do Yule in your house. And then I cornered you, Svan, because you came and made the mistake of sitting down at the table with us. And I think we spent a good hour and a half sitting there while you explained all of your family's Yule traditions to me. Sorry, that was loud. And I derived the majority of what we do for Yule from what Witten Svan here does with his family. Now, I'm sure Svan will be happy to tell you about his traditions if you ask him. Mine are the simplified versions of what Svan did. Not that Svans are complicated, it's just there's so much behind how Svan put these rituals and these traditions together. I couldn't even begin to tell you half of it. They're wonderful, but I needed a simpler version. I'm a simpler person. Excuse me. So I'm going to share my screen if I could figure out how, because I put together a very, very bad presentation. On what's it called? PowerPoint. Literally, it's just words and a few pictures, and it's all probably really poorly spelled because I did not go back and edit. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. We will be able to see it even better if at the bottom there you click on that button.
I was working on it. This is the first time I've used PowerPoint since I was in high school, and that was a very long time ago.
Well, this looks great. I'll also note I have your entire write-up on Yule from years past from the Runestone, and that'll be linked when I share the video.
I plan on rewriting that eventually.
It's good.
Yeah, but anyway, so you'll see here I have this all written on our family calendar for my own sake so I can keep track. One of the things that was really important to me was to make sure to find ways to make the kids interested in Yule for all 12 days. I know that sounds silly. I get burnt out by the end of the 25th. So that's 6 days in, right? Excuse me. Because there's all the decorating and the cooking and the this and the that, and it gets complicated. So it's easy to get burnt out, but I needed for me to have a specific thing that we do every day over the course of Yule to keep them interested. But I wrote basic notes here. I wrote salt dough twice for Mother's Night, and it's not supposed to be there twice. We do salt dough on Nerthus's night instead. Nerthus's day. I don't know. I said night for all of them. I know that Svan has a very specific night day schedule thing. So you can see here, like on Mother's Night, we also honor Frigga and the Disir at the same time on that night. We do a specific thing where we start at the center of the house. We turn off all of the lights everywhere in the house, and we place an unlit candle in every room. And on Mother's Night, after the sun goes down and it's completely dark, or as dark as it can be, we light a candle in our kitchen, basically at our stove. We don't have a fireplace, so we treat that as our hearth. If you have an actual fireplace with a mantle that you use as your hearth, you use that obviously instead. That's the center of the house. In our house, the center of our house is the kitchen, right? We light that candle and we run around the house from room to room, starting at the center and working our way out, usually down, because we have a door in our basement that leads outside, and we light each candle in each room, basically bringing the light of Frigga and the Disir and the hearth into the dark rooms of the house to bring them the warmth of mothers and the warmth of the hearth. And the children, we usually give them pots and pans. And I know that that's sort of a New Year's Eve tradition to have kids bang pots and pans, but I've always done that on Mother's Night for the last like 20 years. So it's just when I do it. But we have the kids banging the pots and pans, and the idea is they go in and they scare anything that has ill intentions out of the room, and we chase them through the house and out the door at the end. And after they're chased out of the room, we light the candle because they're scared of, I don't know, scared, but the way I explain it to the kid is they're scared of the light, and they're scared of the warmth and the joy that comes from Frigga and the Disir and the hearth fire. We have Sunna's night. We light a sun wheel. Something I also do, because uh, Stephen McNallen's 12 Days of Yule is the official 12 Nights of Yule of the AFA, and it existed for a long time before I put together my own version of Svan's 12 Nights of Yule. We include the 12 Nights of Yule that Founder McNallen made. So on Mother's Night, we practice industriousness. Anyways, I'm not going to get too much into this because I put together a whole little thing here. So we celebrate the Yule Wight. For us, the Yule Wight is a little creature who comes to stay with us for the 12 days of Yule. If the children have been good, he leaves a little gift in the tree for them every day during Yuletide. So when we go to pick out a tree, because we do live trees in our house, the kids will bring a little offering. And when we find the tree we like and we cut it down, we leave a little offering where the tree was and ask the Yule Wight to please, if he sees fit, come home with us and be our Yule Wight for the year. And then when we get it home, we put the lights in, and you can't really see it. I circled it. This is the only picture I have for some reason, but we have this little wool knitted scarf thing that we have used as a nest every year, and we put it in a cozy spot in the tree, and we create a nest for the Yule tree to sleep in. And then every day, and this is usually the week before Mother's Night, every day up until Mother's Night, the kids leave an offering to the Yule Wight saying, "We hope you'll be here with us," and usually the offerings disappear. And then on the first day of Yule, which is Sunna's day, the day after Mother's Night, the Yule Wight may or may not bring the first gift, depending on if he finds the kids' offerings worth it. Not worth it, that's the wrong word. We also call Santa a Yule Wight. We call him like the main Yule Wight. That way we can still have Santa, because Santa exists. He's one of the Yule Wights. And for us, the Yule Wight is a really easy way to introduce the kids to the concept of the gift cycle. You give him a gift and he may give you a gift back if he's, you know, it's very simplistic, and I recognize that, but it's important for the kids. For me, it was important for my kids to start to understand the idea that if you give gifts, or if somebody gives you gifts, you should return. It may not always be tit for tat. Maybe somebody gives you $1 and you go sweep their floor for them or something, but there's always a return. It's a cycle. It never, if the cycle ends, the relationship ends. You know what I mean? So we have our Yule Wight, and he comes every day. So the day after, so then we have Mother's Night. I already pretty much explained all what we do for Mother's Night a minute ago. The pots and the pans and the fire from room to room. We also honor industriousness. Usually we watch Steven's video, and then we sit and we talk about what that means. And we light the first candle on our Yule log. And I explained earlier, our Yule log. It's a candle holder that we put a piece of our Yule log in, and then we light candles around it. And every night we light every candle. So on day 1, we light the candle to Frigga and the Disir, and then night 2 we light it to Frigga and the Disir, and then we light the next candle to Sunna. So we just every night we have one more candle to light, but we always recognize the candles from before. And like I said before, this is when we leave we leave an offering for the Yule Wight, and it's the first time where in the morning we'll get something back. On Sunna's night during the day, the kids and I will usually run around and collect stuff to make sun wheels. There's, if you look at the picture, they're actually turned out better than mine, even if they were smaller. Mine is, I don't know if I'd call that a wheel, but I tried, I tried. So I know that a lot of people like to do bloat and burn their sun wheels and stuff, usually around noon when the noontime hour when the sun is at peak. But we don't really have the schedule for that. I work, Cliff works, so we do it when we can. It usually ends up being after the sun has gone down. But I always say it's more important to do it than to not do it because of the timing, Yeah, and on Sunna's night, we celebrate the return of the sun, or the returning sun, I should say, because it is now going to begin to shine for longer every day. We honor courage by watching Steven's videos and discussing, and we light our second candle. Nerthus's day. I don't necessarily need to go through all of this with you guys if you would like me to not, but usually on Nerthus's day we celebrate the earth and what she's given us, because obviously whether we live in convenient times, but we still need the things that we get from the earth in order to survive. Usually we make salt dough ornaments or some other sort of like natural ingredient decoration. I like to do dried oranges. We've done cranberry garlands. I've thought about doing popcorn garlands, but I feel like it was Little Women or some show like that where they made their fingers bleed trying to poke the needles through the popcorn. That was a thing I read or saw somewhere once, and never been a big fan. And on Nerthus's day, we honor courage by watching the video and discussing it, and we light our third candle to Nerthus. Mani's night, we celebrate the shortening nights. They're no longer going to be as long. The sun will be dominant again soon. We usually do our cookie decorating thing. I really love doing it, even though it's a super big pain in the butt and it's messy. But we all sit around and we have a wide array of sprinkles and frostings, and the kids just go crazy. And Cliff can get very into it, both of them actually, because my husband is Cliff and his dad is Cliff, and they're usually both here together getting real fancy with them cookies. But we really just enjoy the time being together and decorating things, We honor generosity by watching the videos and discussing it. That's basically true every night. Sometimes we have really good conversations because Owen is very curious and very into it. And we light our fourth candle. on Ancestors Night. Now, Svan could explain how he does this way better than I could. And like I said, we do a much simpler version of it. But on Ancestors Night, or on the 24th, we honor our ancestors, obviously. We have the Yule Wight travel to the halls of our ancestors and back overnight. And when we wake up in the morning, on the morning of the Ancestors Night, we find that the Yule Wight has brought us special gifts from our ancestors. So each person gets a gift from an ancestor that it's a practical gift, a wool sweater or a special pair of socks, or maybe somebody gets his first pocket knife from an ancestral grandfather. But it's usually labeled with the name of an ancestor, and then the person who receives the gifts, after we open it, has to tell a story about the person who gave them the gift. Because telling stories and saying their names is really one of the best ways we can remember our ancestors, and it's the best way to make sure they stay remembered. We don't want to forget as much as we possibly can. My family personally, we don't have a big dinner, but we have a tea. I make a bunch of like fancy hors d'oeuvres, and we have tea, and we sit and we eat them and open the presents and tell stories. And usually the Yule Wight gets an extra special offering tonight to thank him, because it was a lot of hard work traveling all the way to the halls of the ancestors and bringing those gifts back. And we honor hospitality by watching the video and discussing it, and we light our 5th candle. Christmas Day, or Tyr's Night, was the night we honor Tyr for the sacrifices he makes in order to do what he knows is right at his own detriment. Today, because it's Christmas, everybody everywhere, even people who aren't Christian, know what Christmas is, right? It's one of the biggest holidays in the country. They had Christmas stuff out on the shelves before they had Halloween stuff out on the shelves this year at my Walmart, which makes me sick and also makes me absolutely determined I'm not going to buy any of it, because ew, but I'll probably will end up buying something at some point because we'll need something. I don't know. Some of our lights will be broken or something. I don't know. But it's important for me that my family is involved. My mom, his dad, and his mom too are all very Christian. They're always going to be Christian. They don't want to be Asatru. But they also want to be able to share Christmas with us, because it's a very important holiday to them. It's a huge holiday for families, and so we just call this Family Day. It's the day we use to honor our living families. Just like the night before, Ancestors Night, we celebrated our ancestors. Now we celebrate our living family. And we do this by coming together. We exchange our Yuletide gifts with them, and they exchange their gifts with us. We have our big feast for the year. We get together and we just enjoy each other's company. That way, without it being contentious, they can celebrate what's important to them as far as the Christmas experience with us, and we don't miss out on that experience with them. Also, from the perspective of wanting my children to have at least a semi-normal experience as far as the holiday goes, they don't have to look at all these other kids who get Christmas or presents on that day, be like, well, we didn't get any presents. And I know, like I said, it shouldn't be the thing that matters, but I overthought this a lot when I was pregnant and I knew I was having kids for the first time. So that was a thing for me. I don't know why. It was. But we honor moderation tonight by watching Steven's videos and discussing it. I wrote Steven's. Did I spell it wrong? I did. I'm so sorry. I spelled Steven's name wrong, I think, on every single one. I was typing these like super fast earlier today, trying to get them ready. We light our next candle. So, the next night is the Einherjar Night. We honor the Einherjar, our fallen warriors, for their dedication to the fight and for the lives that they gave. We don't really have a particular thing for Feast of the Einherjar. What did I even write? Einherjar Night. Just an extra letter. Anyways, sorry. Our Yule traditions are still evolving. been fleshing out a little bit. So we haven't really got anything for Einherjar Night. It might also just be a nice night to relax and not have anything on because it's been a rush up until this point, you know. It's also a really good time to spend time with friends, your kindred, or Asatru Folk Assembly members. Sometimes all three at the same time because they are all the same people. Because why not? You spent time with the ancestors. You spent time with your living friends. Now spend time with your living family. Now spend time with your community. Obviously, the day after Christmas might be a little hard to finagle though. But it was, we have done it before, I think. We honor community by watching the videos and discussing it, and we light our candle to the Einherjar. Odin's Night. Obviously, we honor the Allfather Odin. Our newest tradition that we came up with last year is the book exchange. Totally stolen from the Scandinavian tradition of giving books. And it seemed like a good idea to me to have that be on Odin's Night. I'm not saying that every book you give has to be a scholarly book, because I think just reading, even if you're reading a novel or in Owen's case, probably some fantasy about people killing each other because he's really into warriors right now. The act of reading still improves the brain, and that's always a good thing. So I think a book exchange is a great idea, personally. We honor individuality by watching Stephen McNallen's videos and discussing it, and we light our 8th candle. Ullr's Night. We honor the wintry hunter, Ullr. Today is a day to spend time outside. If you're a hunter, maybe you go out and you hunt, or you practice with target practice, or whatever it is that hunters do. I am not one, I don't know. If you're not a hunter, it's a good time to play outside in the cold. Build a snowman if you have snow. If you have snowshoes or you can go skiing, do that. Obviously, Ullr and skiing kind of go together, But enjoy the cold. It's hard to do sometimes. We don't all like to be cold, but try to find a way to enjoy it, and then enjoy the hot chocolate you might get to drink afterwards. We honor truth by watching Stephen's videos and discussing it, and we light our candle to Ullr. Then we have Thor's Night. We celebrate the friend of man. Instead of cooking, usually we pull out all of the leftovers from the last couple of days, and we stick them out at dinner time, and we just eat them. Honestly, for lunch too, we just we pick at them all day. There's always stuff. There's always leftover cheese and meat and crackers and all that stuff, and the hors d'oeuvres from the tea, and we play board games. It's it's a nice way to just hang out and relax and get rid of some of the old food. And we'll honor steadfastness by watching Stephen's videos and discussing them when we light our candle to Thor. Land Wight Day, we honor the Land Wights. I believe that all of us should build a good rapport with the wights of our land. And one of the really good ways to do that is to spend some time every once in a while going outside and tidying up. So in our case, the kids' toys always end up everywhere. So we go out into the yard and we make sure everything's tidy and put away for real. If it hasn't been super snowy, and we walk around our property. We have about 2.5 acres, which isn't much, but a good chunk of it is along one of the main roads in our town. So we walk around and we just clean up all the trash. If you see, that's the road up there, and then over here there's a creek, and a lot of trash kind of flows down that way too. So we walk around the property and we just clean up trash because it's the right thing to do. But also it's a good way to honor the land wights, and we try to do that 2 or 3 times a year. More often if we see stuff while we're out, but 2 or 3 times a year we make the concerted effort, and Land Wight Day during Yule is one of them. And we honor loyalty by watching the videos and discussing it, and we light our candle. And finally, we have the last night of Yule, Freyr's Night. For me, I honor Freyr particularly on this night, because he represents the coming summer, and we honored him to encourage the swift arrival of the warmth and growing things. to watch winter end and to just to be at the end of it. We hold our last big bloat of the season to honor Freyr, and we collect. I usually have a sun wheel hanging in the house somewhere, and that the big log that the sun wheel is kind of perched on right there is actually the Yule log from the year it was in our candle holder. This is a picture from a different year of all of the candles lit, but we take that log and we take the wreath or the sun wheel that we had in the house and we offer those to the fire on Freyr's behalf. And we honor wisdom by watching Stephen McAllen's videos and discussing it. And we light the last of our Yule candles tonight. Today is also the last day that the kids received gifts from the Yule Wight. But we do make one last offering because we make a small offering every single night during Yule. But we make one last offering to him to thank him for visiting us this year and for all of his hard work, knowing that there will be nothing in the tree the next day. And the last part for us is New Year's Day. We know New Year's Day is not actually technically a part of Yule, but we treat it as our last day of the Yuletide celebrations. And that's the day where Cliff and I give our kids the gifts from us. So they have to wait all the way till the very end to receive the last of their gifts. And for me, that big reason for doing that, and it's good, like I said, I hate that my brain was here when I was planning all of this stuff up, but if the kids know that they have a couple extra presents at the end of the day, they're not going to get bored with Yule before it's over. And that was important to me because they learn a lot, and it's pious, and it's our faith, and they learn that. But when they're little, when they're 4 and 6 like they are now, the attention is going to be on the presents foremost, and they're going to learn the things and know the things without realizing they're learning and knowing them. So by the time they're old enough to understand, it'll be so ingrained in them that the present part doesn't matter as much anymore. That was my thought process anyway. Anyways, that is all of my presentation. I'm sorry that was so long. It didn't seem like it would be so long when I was typing it up. But I am done. If anybody has any questions. Oh, hi, Nick. I see your hand.
It was beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I'm just
really
mesmerized,
sorry.
and what a perfect PowerPoint. It was beautifully done.
I will adjust Steven's name in all of them so that his name is spelled correctly. Like I said, I sat down after work today at like 5, and I decided I was going to do this very last minute, which is what I do with everything. I'm very last minute. It's just, I don't know. It occurred to me to do it today at work. And so I sat down and I typed the whole thing up in like an hour, and I was going to go back and double check. But then Cliff told me I had to be on at 7. And then I went to check, and there was nothing on the calendar for 7. And then I saw the canceled meeting, and it turns out, or canceled, and it turns out I was looking at the wrong meeting, and it was all just, I got confused. And I'm baking on top of it. I'm going to stop talking. Nick, what do you want?
What do I want? So, this is not really important, but I see it all the time, and I don't think it's from the sect of Christianity that I grew up with. What's with the paper hats or paper crowns?
Oh, so that's not actually anything to do with Christianity as far as I know. When my mom lived in England, it was super normal to have poppers, and they're basically like these little like toilet paper rolls with a little bit of like gunpowder or some other kind of explodey powder in them, and they're decorated, and when you and another person pull the ends, and it's supposed to pop open, and it usually has like a paper crown and like a little toy or something in it, but they're like holiday poppers. I don't know what the proper name is, but that, I don't know if it was big in our country, except we can find them pretty easily here, so I'm assuming they are, but that was always just a really big thing for my mom because she spent a couple years in England, and that's what they did there. So
yeah, I knew it was a British thing. I think I just always assumed it was like an Anglican / Catholic / not Protestant thing.
No, I would venture to say that it really was more commercial than anything because they were selling poppers. But yeah, no, it's not as specifically faith related.
If y'all like it, I guess then if it's fun.
I mean, it's just a stupid, silly little thing, but we like it.
Yeah. Awesome.